Let's go, let's grow, let's get it.
So let's talk about dealing with failure or perceived failure. So there is a definite difference. Perceived failure is when you think it might be failure or you might be viewing it as failure and it's not. It's not actually that. A lot of people think that they have failed at something when you actually have not failed. I believe it was Bob Proctor who said when he was younger, he thought he was failing at pole vault. So pole vault is in track and field. It's a space where you're running with this long pole. You kind of punch this pole into the ground and then you go over an apparatus. When you're trying to go over it, you're supposed to clear it and not hit this bar, and the bar comes down. So Bob Proctor kept doing this and he kept hitting the bar. And so he would try again and he would hit the bar. He ran again and he would hit the bar. And he kept thoughting that he was failing, or he kept thinking that he was failing until one day someone told him that you're actually succeeding. It was a perceived failure. Now stay with me. He thought that he was failing because he kept hitting the bar until somebody told him that you're actually succeeding because you keep going at it, you keep trying it, and you keep attempting. So, first of all, when someone thinks that they're failing, many times you're not failing. And second, you're perceiving something to be a failure when it might actually be success. I'm going to say something. There's a long statement, and Earl Nightingale says the definition of success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Again, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal is the definition of a success. What that means is success is actually progressively going after something, making it real, and going after something that you made a decision to go after. That is not failure. And I challenge your definition or your perceived failure because you might be looking at it wrong. You might be saying, I'm not succeeding at this thing, when in actuality, you made a decision. You clearly defined what you want to do, and you're actually going after that. Do you know that most people live their entire life and most people never do that? Most people never clearly define what they want to go after in life. And then most people never go after it. One, because they have no idea about it. Two, because people who actually define it, some of those people still don't go after it. I'll give you an example in the space of podcasting. It's said that in podcasting that 90% of people don't go past recording their own first episode. 90%. That's a high number. Of the 10% who go past the first episode, only 1% record more than 20 episodes. So that means if you've gone past recording 20 episodes in the space of podcasting, you are now the 1%. Now, somebody who's recorded 30 episodes, 40 episodes, and maybe they're not getting traction, maybe they're not getting a lot of views and a lot of attention, they're feeling like they're not successful. But they're actually successful because they stood on and stuck to what they said they wanted to do, which was actually to record a podcast. And most people simply do not stick with what they're doing, because most people don't just set it out. They don't just set the goal. They don't set the goal and actually go after it. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Success is saying, this is what I want to do, is actually going after it. So when you have a perceived failure, you're looking at something and you're believing that it's something that it is not. I am challenging you to say that what you think success is might not be that. I called one of my friends up one time, having a conversation with him, and I said, "Man, I'm messing this thing up. Like I'm not getting this right. Like I'm definitely not doing something right. This is wrong. It just seems all wrong." He said back to me, "Carlos, you fail your way to success." And before I could even say anything else and respond, he said, "You didn't hear me. I said you fail your way to success." That means you're moving from one failure to the next failure to the next failure, and that's actually the path of success. So most people perceive that as failure when it's not failure at all. It is actually the path that's going towards success. Most people who are successful is the person who said, I'm not going to quit. And the person usually who's unsuccessful is the person who quit and the person who gave up. I believe it was Les Brown that said this: success is moving from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. That means you're moving from one failure to the next failure, and you are not losing your enthusiasm to keep going after your goal, which sometimes you have a perceived failure, which is not an actual failure in the first place. You have not failed. There's a beautiful saying that I like to live by a lot. It says that sometimes I win and sometimes I learn. I never lose. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. You never lose. That means either you're winning in something that you're doing or you're learning from something that you thought was a failure. A lot of times you don't learn unless you fail. You don't learn a lot when you're actually being successful at something. I challenge you to look at the things you were successful at. How much did you actually learn? It felt good to be successful at it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't chase success, but you learn from those perceived failures. So the importance of actually going through something and attempting something, even if you feel like it hasn't been successful, is you're learning something that you would have never learned if you went down another path. That path that sometimes feels like failure is sometimes the only path that's going to cause you to learn the actual lesson that you will learn. You cannot learn that lesson on the path that's always successful. I even heard some business people say that they won't even invest into a business unless the person has failed at least 5 times. What does that mean? That means that what if you invest into somebody who's never failed and then they fail and they don't know how to get back up? It means that the person who's investing into this person, they're investing to somebody who's learned to get back up. So I challenge you to no longer look at failure like it's actually failure. You can look at failure like it's something I have to learn in this. And I also say the best way to overcome it is usually by learning through it. There's a saying that says, the only way to is through. So there are some things that the only way you're going to overcome this thing is by actually going through this thing and by not trying to avoid this thing. Because trying to avoid this thing is probably failure in itself.